Welcome to Digital Marketing One-on-One for Latinas. I am your host and your coach, Heidi de la Cruz. And today I want to get into the real cost of building an online business. So I'm going to share all the coaching and all the investments and all the investments that I've done since being in this online world, in this online space. And not everything was money. A lot of the investments was time, right? Because everything costs something, whether time, whether money, or sometimes both. So I want to get into those details with you today. But before I start with that, I received a comment on my episode breaking down digital marketing and what exactly it is. And so Tanya said to me, "Thanks for breaking down what digital marketing is really about, because out here in the internet streets, they're telling a whole different story." Thank you, Tanya, for that comment and for listening in. And like I said in that one episode, yes, everyone's tying digital marketing with the MRR courses, or the Master Resale Rights courses. And as you guys heard, that is not what digital marketing is. And so thank you for that. And also, I was having a call, like a cafecito is what we call it, right? Cafecito chat with another fellow SEO expert. And she's been doing SEO for over 11 years, is what she told me. And so I was telling her about this podcast and the idea and what I'm going to be talking about. And she was like, "Yes, thank you so much for breaking down and actually talking about what digital marketing really is, because it's been hijacked and all that." So it's another, I guess, confirmation, letting me know that this is the right approach and the right path. Okay, so let's get into all the investments that I have done since starting this online world. And as I had mentioned before, I started my blog in 2014. And in 2014, my blog was just going to be an online journal, right? It was just going to be me sharing my life in this online space in a blog. And it was mostly going to be for me. So to be able to look back on my life and see all the stuff that I've accomplished, all the things that I've done, and things like that. And so in 2018 is when I was like, okay, this can become a business. Like this, I can get paid for this, for writing online. And so that's when I started my freelance writing business. And the first investment that I did was I bought a freelance bundle that included a physical book. So the physical book was mailed to me, and it had a bunch of PDFs and graphics and even content to post on social media. It was literally showing you how to become a freelance writer, how to pitch to people to get clients, how to format your blog posts, your articles, what sources to use that are credible for when you need to include, stats and statistics and things like that. And so it was a bundle that had literally like everything included. I learned so much from that bundle. And that was the first investment. I cannot remember how much I actually paid for that, but it was well worth it. I still have the book because it was very, very detailed, and it had everything that you needed to know on starting your online freelance business was in there. And that was 2018. And then like I had mentioned before, I got a few clients off that, and it was writing articles for a few clients, and it was actually really fun to do. And then once the pandemic hit, that's when I stopped doing that. And so since starting the online writing business, I was really focused on my writing and making my craft better and everything. So I started attending virtual writing webinars because, again, this was during 2020. I stopped writing for clients, but I kept writing for myself. So I still wanted to continue my craft of writing and still improving it and things like that. So I started attending virtual writing webinars and conferences. So in 2020 to 21 and 22 as well. So from there, I was investing time in listening to other writers, learning about their journey, learning about traditional publishing versus self-publishing, the pros and cons for each one. And as you guys know, I self-published a poetry book in 2022. So I decided to go that route after doing, much research on both. And so my virtual conference attending started in 2022. All right. So in 2022, I then started researching on how to start a podcast. and self-publishing my poetry book. So I literally was Googling how to start a podcast and reading all the articles and finding everything that I needed to do to start a podcast. And so I was investing a lot of time. Right. I did not hire out. I did not hire a coach, although I wish I would have. But I didn't really know the podcasts that I would listen to, like the hosts were not near me and things like that. So I really didn't know like who to reach out to in regards to helping me start a podcast. I was just like, you know what? I'm a self starter. I can motivate myself. I'm just going to do this myself because that's just the type of person that I am. And so I literally figured out how to launch a podcast and did that in 2022 while also researching again, self-publishing to self-publish my book. And so I was investing a lot of time for those two projects, for starting the podcast, then getting guests and recording and trying to figure out all of that schedule, and also working on self-publishing my poetry book and things like that. So in 2022 there was a lot of time invested in my projects, although for the book, like there was some charges, I think, to get like to order bulk, right, of books. I had to order that, so that was an investment to then go ahead and sell the books and make that money back. 2022 was also the time that I started going to networking events here in where I live. I was going to business networking events just to share about my podcast, to try to get guests and things like that. So more time invested in this online business world with, attending networking events. And then I realized I really enjoyed being in person with people, talking and networking, right? And just letting them know what I do, finding out what they do, see how we could collaborate or not, or maybe if there's a service that somebody needs that maybe I don't provide, but I know somebody that does and I can refer out and things like that. So 2022 was also when I started attending networking events. And I also was a vendor. I think it was for two events where I was selling my poetry book, but I was also selling my journals that I had created on Canva and sold on Amazon. So I would buy, them in bulk, the poetry book and the journals. And I was a vendor at a networking event for women. And yeah, so it was really interesting telling people about my book and my story and the journals and why I decided to do those journals. So more time and money invested because there was a vendor fee that you had to pay to get a table. And then obviously with what you sold during the event, you would make that money back or in profit, right? And 2023, I attended my first group coaching program, and this was virtually. And I remember how much I invested on this one. Clearly, it was over $4,000. It was a 3-month coaching program, and I felt like there was a lot of things that were being taught that didn't apply to me yet because I just wasn't at that part of my business for what was being taught. And so I do still have notes and things like that from what I learned there that I was able to, apply later. But I'm like, I wanted a program that was going to help me for where I am in the stage that I am and help me get to the next stage. I also applied to a podcasting internship for one of the very first podcasts that I started listening to faithfully. Like I was listening to this podcast every single week, and it was a well-known podcast. She had a team, and the internship was for 5 months. And I actually got to work directly with her. I got to listen to the episodes, and I would pick out the quotes that I thought that were very, motivational or inspirational, like just like the best quotes that the guest said. And I would send that to her. And then I also even helped out with the show notes. So listening to the episodes and coming and writing the show notes. So I did that. And before the internship finished, I scheduled a one-on-one call with her to ask questions about her podcasting journey. She had already been podcasting for almost 10 years at that time. So obviously she was at a very different stage in her business and podcast than where I was just starting. And so I remember scheduling that one-on-one call just to ask questions, which is something that I realized that I tend to do. It's just like, if I find someone who's doing what I want to do, except for the podcast, I did not do that there because again, I didn't have any podcasters around me. But when I know that there's something that I want to do and I am able to reach out to somebody to ask questions, I go ahead and do that because a lot of people are actually more willing to help than you think. So yeah, so during our one-on-one call, I really appreciated how honest she was about her journey. And, she had mentioned that, with podcasting, things take time to get momentum. And then shortly after that internship, I actually applied to a different internship who was actually her friend. And so they, were around in the same circles. And I applied, and this one was more business focused rather than just podcasting, because she is a business coach. And so she has a podcast and, online business, and she's been doing this for over 15 years. So for that one was really, really more business focused than podcast focused. And being part of the internship team, I was actually part of her podcasting team, where I would turn each podcast episode into a blog post. So I would listen and turn it into a blog post, make sure that it was SEO formatted and optimized for her keywords and all that. And then would also help out with the show notes, with the quotes as well, and things like that. So I learned a lot because there was a lot of moving parts with her online business. And, she did have a big team. And so it was really interesting to see all the behind the scenes. So in addition to that, she also offered one-on-one coaching for the internship, and also group coaching. So then I got both settings. And so group coaching was with the other interns, and the one-on-one obviously was just her and you. Sorry, when it came to the group coaching, I realized that I really liked that setting of group coaching, because again, the women were working on different aspects of their business and different things, but when you were stuck on something, you were able to bring it to the group and get different perspective and things like that. So for example, when we had found out that my son needed speech therapy, it was hard. I did not have to go through that with my daughter, so it was something that was very hard for me. And so I remember feeling like I was a bad mom, because I felt like I had to choose between starting this business, like continue to do my podcast and things like that, or be there for my son, right? And there was actually a speech pathologist in the group, and she informed me that, as long as he doesn't have like a diagnosis or anything that's hindering his speech, he will speak. There's some kids just speak later than others. And so it was just really, really, it was nice and reassuring to hear like the other ladies who also had their kids go to speech therapy, and then just, confirm and be like, it's going to be okay. He's fine, and tell me like, you don't need to like burn down your business, and you're not a bad mom. Just getting that, right? Just getting that support, which was really, really cool. And there was also the retreat that you got to go to twice a year if you wanted to. It was not mandatory. It was your choice. And then you also got access to all her digital courses, which she had quite a few. And then also you had the opportunity to go through her 12-week coaching program. So it was literally her coaching you week after week on how to set up your coaching business. So after I finished that 12-week program, I got the certification to be a certified coach. And so then I started coaching people to launch their podcast in 2023. So in 2023 was also the year that I attended my first business conference. So again, investing time and money with that. And I love the concept of conferences. I've attended a few throughout the years. I do find them to be very valuable. And it is one of my favorite ways to invest in myself and in my business, right? When you go to these conferences, you hear from the speakers. You also have opportunities to network with other attendees and things like that. And you always, at least I do, I always leave the conferences like really motivated and inspired, but also very, very exhausted, like so exhausted from all the exchange of energy and just taking in all that information all day, and sometimes it's multiple days. Yeah, it's very, very exhausting. But again, it's still my favorite way to invest in myself and in my business currently. 2024. So this year I was still part of the internship because it was a year-long program, and I continued to work on my podcast and my coaching and creating my podcast course, which that was also very, I was going to say time consuming, but it was a lot of time invested to create the course. And so in 2024, I also took a step back from social media. I had mentioned before, but this was the year that I was mostly investing in my mental health with therapy, coaching and exercise. And I was also a part of group coaching for like 3 months again. So I did sign up for like another group coaching. That one was for an investment. That was an investment in money and time. And so that one, not that I didn't like it, there was just like a lot going on, a lot of people in there. And then I was like, I kind of like the one-on-one more rather than the coaching program. So I was like, I feel like I work better with a coach when it's one-on-one. So that is actually something that is very important for before you invest in coaching, is knowing which coaching style works best for you, whether group coaching or one-on-one or maybe a mixture of both, because you definitely, want to know which one works best for you. Everybody's different. And so in 2024, the only conference that I remember attending was, I went back to my hometown of Grand Rapids and I saw Jackie Hill Perry in her Glory conference that she did. And I absolutely love Christian conferences for women. Like, I attended my first one in 2019, and yeah, I tried to attend one every year because they're so encouraging, and you guys know that my faith is the center of everything that I do, and so it's very important for me to keep my spiritual cup full. Spending time with the Lord, praying, reading my Bible, and attending Christian conferences is definitely one of them. And so I attended Jackie Hill Perry's. Okay, so 2025, I went to another business conference earlier this year. I still continue to attend local networking events for businesses. I actually even hosted my own event earlier this year for the podcast, celebrating my other podcast, The American Dream in the Eyes of Immigrants, where I was celebrating 3 years of the podcast, celebrating that I had won award in 2024, and just and also celebrating that it's ranked top 5% globally. So all those milestones and achievements were celebrated in one event. And I realized I had always known that event planning is not my strength. It stresses me out. But I really felt called by God to do this event. And that's a story for another day because it's a whole testimony. So I did my own event. I got to network with people. There were a few people that were there that I had not met in person. They had heard of the event. They really liked what the podcast was about, so they went to go check it out, and that was really, really cool. And another event that I attended, another conference, was Creator Hub. And Creator Hub, I learned a few things. But before I get into that, Creator Hub, this was the second year of Creator Hub. Last year was called Creator Fest, and the founder mentioned that he wants to bridge the gap between entrepreneurs and content creators. So letting content creators know that they are entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs know that they are content creators, right? And then this is the space where that bridge gets gapped. Yeah, so it was a conference for creators, and it was a 3-day conference. I actually only went one day, and at the end of the day, again, I left really, really exhausted. But I got to thinking about something that the founder said, and I'm gonna get my notes here so I can tell you guys. Okay, so in the beginning of the conference, the founder had mentioned that in order for the speakers to be qualified to speak on the stage, they had to make a certain amount of money, which was like over $1 million. I can't remember the exact amount, but it was like over $1 million that they had to be making in order to speak at Creator Hub. Great. And halfway throughout the day, I was like, where are the women? Like, I've only heard men speaking. And mind you, there were 2 stages going on at the same time. So they had one conference room of one stage, another conference room with another stage. And so there were speakers speaking at the same time throughout the whole day. And so you got to choose which stage and which speaker you wanted to listen to. And so I was like looking at the schedule, and I think there was only 3 or 4 women that were going to speak, but the ones at the time, I believe there was only like 3 or 4 women that were going to speak. But I was looking at my schedule and I was like, I don't think they spoke at the day that I attended, because again, it was a 3-day event and I only attended one day. But I was thinking I was like, where are the women, speakers? Like, but then again, thinking back of the threshold that was put in order to speak, it really got me thinking about that, because there was only like 4 women and I can't even remember how many men. And so I remember asking my husband, I was like, or telling him like the majority of the speakers were men. And so he was asking me like, why did I think that was the case? And I was like, well, I think there's more men entrepreneurs in the United States. So that was the first thing I looked up. So out of the percentage of people in the United States, the population, right? Only 16 to 19% of the population in the US are entrepreneurs, right? And then so I went even further. So I was like, okay, so out of that percentage, how many are men? And so it was about 67 to 68% of entrepreneurs are men. So over half. And the entrepreneurship population is very small. So yes. And so then I was starting to think about, okay, so if yes, there's more men entrepreneurs and that gives them a chance to make more money. So then I wanted to see like what was the difference between how much money women owned businesses made versus male. And so it was reported in 2020 that only 12% of female led businesses brought in more than $100,000 a year. So, and then another source says that 88% of all women owned businesses generate less than $100,000 a year. And then the other statistic that I had heard before was that less than 2% of women owned businesses make it to $1 million. So then I was like, okay, if that's the numbers, and that's why there wasn't that many women speakers at Creator Hub, which is fine, but there were certain things that were said, or strategies and things that were told, like, oh, you could do this, that didn't really apply to me because other details. So Creator Hub was investment, time and money, money spent on the ticket, and then obviously the time going there to learn. So the last investment that I have done or can remember doing, because I haven't even talked about like the books that I bought, the digital courses or things like that. Like I didn't even get into that, but is I started with a new coach a few weeks ago. I'm doing a one-on-one program and it goes for 3 months. So I definitely want to let you guys know more details about that once I'm done. And I do believe that if you are going to be a coach, you should be coached, right? There should be someone coaching you in something in regards to your business. Because as you can tell, and this is the main reason why I wanted to share this today, is because having an online business or having a brick and mortar business and personal development goes hand in hand with your success. And actually, when I had finished doing the outline for this episode, I found on Threads this post that said the most expensive self-development project that you could do or invest in is starting your own online business. And I was like, oh, that's so funny because that's exactly what I'm going to talk about on my podcast. And so, yes, personal development goes hand in hand with your success. So once you're in this business journey, you need to be consistently investing in yourself, whether that is books, whether that is webinars, whether that is conferences, whether that's networking events. You need to constantly be investing in yourself. And remember, everything costs something. It's either time or money, and sometimes both, like I mentioned in my story. And when you hire a coach, you are hiring someone to take you from point A to point B without all the mistakes and all the figuring it out in the middle, because the coach has already done it, right? And they know what works and what doesn't work. Hiring a coach that is doing what you want to do is one of the smartest investments that you can make. So like I mentioned earlier, like I should have gotten a podcast coach or try to find a podcast coach when I first started. And so I always say like, I want to be the person that I needed in the beginning. So yeah, definitely wish I would have hired a coach. But if you are on the fence of hiring a coach for whatever it is, or on the fence of even hiring me to help you with your online business, do it. Honestly, like it's literally one of the best investments that you can make. Another thing that has me really fired up is like I shared with you all those stats about women entrepreneurs, and I didn't even get into the Latinas because I know that we already make less money. And so I really want to help Latinas start their online business to get that financial freedom and break generational cycles, right? And you don't have to do this alone. Entrepreneurship can be very lonely, especially if you're the first one in your family to do this, like I am, which is another reason why I wanted to be there for you, because I too am breaking generational cycles within my family, and I want to help you do the same. So apply for coaching. The link is in the show notes and the show description. I want to make sure that we are a good fit for each other, which is why I always say I have this application process first, because again, I'm not here just to take your money. I am here to help you break generational cycles by making online money and having that financial freedom, right? So apply for coaching. The link is in the show notes and show description. And remember, everything is an investment. You may not see your return on investment right away, but as long as you stick with it, you will. So until next time, con mucho amor, your coach, Heidi.